I'm Jason Arment. You are?
My name is Gabriel.
Excellent, Aaron. Tell us what you used to do for a living.
I am an unlicensed architect. I'm halfway through my licensure, my professional licensure. I am a professor, and I am a published author. And what I was recently doing, I was working with the University of Arkansas Community Design Center, an excellent outfit, and we were planning cities in Arkansas, planning infrastructure, and providing new design models for how to build our environment. We built neighborhoods for Habitat for Humanity. We provided city plans for cities that were going through the industrial southern economic momentum and shifting towns. And so they needed new planning, and that's what we provided. We were a nonprofit at a low cost, so the cities could have that cost.
Basically,
could have
you're
that
credible
service.
Though. You know what's going on.
I've looked at a few plans. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
I've produced a few. Yes, I've been around and had awards and taught this for 10 years now. So
Okay, excellent. You've seen this plan specifically. What are your feelings on this? What are your general impressions? We'll get more into specifics in a second, but you know, you've looked at it before just this second. What do you think about it?
my concern is that you said this is a middle of the road sort of like this has been going on for months, and it seems, first of all, a little how would you say, typical of the people at home need to know this kind of development is called new urbanism. It was started by Andreas Duani and Elizabeth Plater-Zyberg. They're in Miami, and this is what cities were buying. It's a picture of dense development where the street comes out and there's a bar and a cafe and people live upstairs and things like that, which is why Somerset has walk-ups, right, in Ames, Iowa. In other words, the image doesn't always fit where it's placed, at least not at first. Now, I'd love to see that become a dense, bustling village. That's fantastic. I just don't think that the people of Ames, Iowa were ready to be a dense, bustling village, and they were given that type of development, and now they have to inhabit it. And I think that's happening down here. Based on the pictures I see there of other places and the kinds of things that they're planning for here, like a pharmacy, like a big kind of commercial pharmacy right on the corner, the front doorstep of a university, just doesn't seem like that's how the people here are speaking about their environment or feel about it. I think it's a little imported, if you will. And I think that the public needs to understand a little bit more about what this will look like, and that these things, like what's interesting about this second scheme that you've showed me now, the first scheme was just a sort of quick sketch of shapes. The second scheme is on a Google Earth screenshot, which takes all of about a second to gather. And then this seems rather simplified for me, but there's a lot of legal language in this. Now it's saying exactly what the density is going to look like and exactly what's going to be where. And I don't see any of the things planned for that the people here have elected to have here. In other words, they vote with their dollars. They pay for these businesses for a reason. But I'm concerned with this because these businesses may not fit the image that this plan is looking to make this part of the city. There's an image involved, and I think the people need to understand how that image will impact their life. It will look great. I mean, I would love to see this, you know, all new with apartments upstairs and great businesses downstairs and places that the students go and places that their parents go. Yes, I want that. This is the gateway to the university. I mean, just the land rights of throwing that many students back and forth across there, that many consumers, are sick. They're huge. And I'm not sure that this really investigates what's happening here. You've got a massive pond over here, a beautiful natural resource. None of that ecology. No, they're not planting trees over here. They're not bringing that landscape across. They're not encouraging any of the local environment. And that's what these kinds of things do. They're great. Some of them have worked beautifully. The tenets of new urbanism are fantastic. I cannot deny what those people want. I just don't think that the way they think it looks or it should look is what will satisfy the people of Ames. I think this community does not think that way.
How do you read, like, I'm looking at it right now, there's a lot of rectangles on it. a lot of, I don't know, spaces that are charted for certain things. How exactly do you read this? As far as zoning goes, are some of these things single-use zoning? What is single-use zoning?
Well,
what's going on?
Single-use zoning is what we know as zoning, okay? Schools can only go so far from factories, okay? Housing divisions go so far from interstates, things like that. Single-use zoning has been a killer for our cities. It is, in other words, you can't go get some groceries downstairs and pop over to the dry cleaner to get your dry cleaning like I do in New York, right? Because of single-use zoning, you can't have those things together in one building and things like that, and so you have to drive everywhere. And everything is dislocated and only joined up by roads, spokes, networks. And what you want here is a community that thrives internally. You don't want to have to drive over to Walmart to get something. You want to just pop downstairs. This is the way I lived when I lived in Manhattan. Manhattan's a little too dense for this. It's a different kind of living, but that's the tenets of this, is to serve your life and your lifestyle. The things you need should be close enough that you don't have to get in a car and go drive someplace else. That's what this is focused on and about. The tenets of this, but not this plan. You brought up an interesting point. It's very 2D, except the wordage is 3D, but the picture is 2D. This to me is I don't know this firm, but I don't think that this is a communicable document. I mean, they've got 3D in words, but 2D on a picture. They need massing. If you guys are watching, massing. 3D, just pop in, just sketch in what the building, where they're at, how big they are, where the sun goes, where the landscape's going to go, what this big empty spot in the middle is going to be. Because in single-use zoning, in the cities, they like to put parking back there, right? But I'm friends with a landscape architect who works locally, who has for many years, and this is a unique landscape opportunity that is being completely overlooked by the planning. And so I feel that the planning really needs more oomph. It needs more locality. It needs to look at what this place is, not how to do these sort of enclosure. They're just lining the blocks. They're just liner buildings.
I had a question about that, and you might not have the answer because, I mean, you didn't make this plan, but what does this white stuff represent? I mean, I understand there's kind of
empty space. That's just the...
can they just do whatever they want with that? Or is there...
Well, that's what's missing in the plan, right? The good news is the landowners will have an opportunity to maybe make that something in the future, but excuse me, guys, but it shows a hole in the planning. I mean, if you're gonna ring that block, I'm guessing it's because this guy is holding out. That's why they haven't planned it, is because a landowner hasn't sold out or whatever. But that's no excuse to not plan that for the future. Or, I mean, you're going to build all these other buildings, and you got to think about what this thing wants to be in the future. And I think the planning is at least in this document. Please do not take any of this as an insult to the planners. I do not know anything about their contract with the city. You know, this is a very tricky business. I'm going only by what I see on paper. Okay. So I do not mean any insult to anyone. Please, please, please know this. I'm just. You have to own these spaces. You have to name them. You have to say what they are. You have to have a future for them.
Do you think that this plan is, do you think it's dynamic? Do you think it's a dynamic mixed-use development? Or do you think it's not dynamic? Because, I mean, dynamic's a word in bold on the front of this brochure. What I see here is not visually dynamic, but you know more than me about the plan. Like, what's going on? Is this... I mean, can you see it in your mind? Is it a dynamic thing? Or?
I don't want to pin a tail on them and say that it is or it isn't. Based on the single-use kind of streetscape and space you have, that is dynamic. I don't think it's dynamic enough, and I don't think it really understands what the people here will occupy and make dynamic. So, I mean, it's dynamic because there's a mix of different uses. In a couple of places, they have multi-story residential on the street next to the uses, and you don't have that here at the moment. But I think that you could go a lot further with a lot of that, and so it's kind of it's dynamic, but it's not like wee dynamic. But again, I don't want to say any insults because I don't know who. I mean, I know that the city contracted this. I don't know what their deal was, and I don't know what this firm has done, or the inside of planning rooms and contracts and things is a very complex place.
As far as demographic statistics that are compiled in order to kind of figure out like how this would be made, I was looking at that. There's actually a little tidbit here I found interesting. This says the demographics in the 1 mile, I guess, radius, I'm assuming,
yes,
of this. It says the average household income is what's up, James? Is $47,555. So $47,555. I live within a mile of here. I don't make $47,000 a year.
Well, that's a median, number one, and number two, a 1 mile radius of this place has to include and exclude a lot, because if you took the radius from right there at Welch and Lincoln Way, you're going to pick up a lot of university housing and things like that, and those aren't really counted in a lot of those demographics, right? Because they're not considered, productive citizens out working and buying, even though they spend a shed load of money in these places. So I don't know how exactly that radius was compiled, but there's also there are some residences here and things like that. And what concerns me, no, you don't make that money, but what concerns me is that is lower than the average American family income. So what they're saying is, even if they have included some of the students and things like that, it's still lower than the average of all Americans, from the wealthy New Yorkers to the nobody, in the middle of nowhere guys. Okay, so that should be a number one, an indicator. Okay, so it's a lower than average economic expectation. So why suddenly does it need some of these things? I'm not sure on the numbers that brought them to those conclusions, but I just know, walking around these streets, living in Ames, I know that what they're saying should go there isn't always quite what the people want. And I just, maybe they should open it up. Excuse me for interrupting. Maybe they should just open it up, let the people speak to the planners and to the city council. They do this a lot, especially new urbanist firms like this one. They let the community come, and they have a charrette, and they let the community speak while their guys draw and do this kind of stuff, so the community gets to go one-on-one and say, we like that or we don't. Why not do that here? I don't think that, I just think that my concern about all this is that my sense of Ames and my sense of the people like you that I meet here and places that I go is that this vision is a little mediocre for a place like this.